Yes, good morning. Good morning, guys. I hope you're all doing well. Again, let me know in the chat if you've got any issues whatsoever with my audio sync. Please let me know right away. I think I had some issues last week and would like to get those resolved early if I can, if I need to. How are you guys doing this morning? Give me some call outs in the chat if you can. And start putting topics for the morning. And I'll put them on our board here. Let's see. So far, it's pretty clean slate. Stacia, it's good to see you this morning. See you popped in the chat there. Thank you. Katie and Mom, good to see you too, for sure. I hope you're both doing well. Yeah, I was pretty busy this week. I was actually out of town for a lot of it. It was hard to, connect with all the people I needed to connect with and to get some of the videos done that I needed to do. Come alive. It's good to see you, brother. I hope you're doing well. We've been thinking about you, praying about you. I like that smiley face. I hope you're feeling good. I hope you guys had a good week. Go ahead and post in the chat if you have any topics you want to talk about today. Try to build the list up again. I've been clearing it out each week, so a lot of times I've had them, float from week to week, but we keep getting through them. Now we're doing good. Stacia, you are camping. That is great. So my background is appropriate for you this morning. Out in the woods. And I hope you're sharing the Bible Scribe live stream with the campsites around you. I hope that, they're flocking to see. Cook some food and get some people to come over and watch. Come alive, you said you're up and down. You get weak, easy, and you end up in bed, but you're fighting. Good for you. It's all you can do. Rick Bowser, good morning, sir. It's good to have you this morning. I'm glad to see you there. Stacia, you say, it's sad, but my mom still makes the breakfast. Good for her. The matriarch of the family still, huh? We need those. We need those strong figures in our families to just to build strength in the family. It's interesting. I've noticed as time goes on and, different family members either pass on or move away and move back, all these different things that happen, it really changes the dynamics of a family greatly. Whereas in the past, most families lived together and even extended families lived in the same area for their entire lives. There just wasn't as much travel and people didn't move for jobs and all that stuff as much. And so it's just interesting how it ebbs and flows and families change, but we definitely need those strong figures in our families to bring everybody together. So you say she's glamping. Yep, that's all that works for some people. They got a glamp. I'm a minimalist. I go out there and I'm like, I will bring a sleeping bag. If it was just me, I'd probably just go out and bring a sleeping bag and a pad and sleep with the snakes, you know. So, Laura Masood, welcome this morning. It's good to see you. And you have a topic. Good. Word studies in the Bible, for instance, hate means to esteem less and not what we think it is. Ah, yes. Word studies in the Bible. I'll put that on. I'll put that on, Laura. So, Laura, that topic is on the list. Everybody else, Laura just popped on and she's already ahead of all of you. She's already given me a topic. So you guys got to step up here. Give me some topics here. Or do we know everything? We're good. We know it. Not that I'm the source of knowledge, for sure. Oh, goodness. Yeah, I've been working hard, to try to get this beast video done, and I keep saying it every week now. It's really getting annoying to me to say it. It's just really complicated. Now, I was speaking with one of you this week about that, and the beast and those verses in Revelation 13 and 17 where it mentions the beast and how that connects to Rome and the emperors and Daniel and everything. It's so complicated, man. I mean, it's just so much. I'm trying really hard to figure out the best way to present that material. I actually started recording the beast video. I recorded like 30, 45 minutes of video for the beast, and I realized it was so complicated. It felt like I was bouncing all over the place. I just had to put it down and stop. And I was like, I got to redo this. I got to get back to this. And I really have to iron out the kinks of how to present that much information in a way that makes sense. So much. Lindsay Ball, good morning. And Earth to Cindy, good morning to both of you. And Lindsay, I did see how Titus was called Domitian. In fact, so was Nero. They called him Domitius Nero. And a few of the emperors seem to have that name in their title. So it's, yes, Domitian of about, what was he, the emperor in like 90, 100 AD, had the name Domitian as his first like title of his name, but a few of the emperors also had it. So it's interesting how that works. I don't fully understand that myself yet, but I'm learning more. Francis Howard, good morning. And Armored Raven, it's good to see you. Armored Raven, must you always speak in Leet? That's what I want to know. Is this your encoding so the feds don't catch on to you? Which I don't blame you for. I don't. So. Stacia, what does Domitian mean? Well, Domitus, like Domitus, Domitia, the root of that is ruler. It's like authority or power. Dominion, the same root as that word, reign. So it may not be as much of a name as we think it is, but it may be more of a title. So that's why it was said with their names for many of the emperors. Armored Raven, you said, please pray for your wife. She needs spiritual support for spiritual battles today. We will pray for her. How about we'll just pray for her on the live stream? We'll do that. Let me put that in my list over here so I do not forget this. Yeah, if there's anything that you guys want to put on a prayer list for us to pray for just now as we get started, then I'll do it. Armored Raven, I like that. Only sometimes, right? Yeah. Uh, Laura, you gave another topic. People say they heard from the Lord. How does that work? What does the Bible show, and how does God communicate with us? I'll put that on the list. I like it. Hearing from God. We'll do it. Yeah, perfect. Lindsay Ball, you said if I work out Daniel 11, let you know. Daniel 11. Daniel 11 is the stuff that matches up with the books of Maccabees, isn't it? If I'm not mistaken. I remember it goes into a lot of that for the time, future history, before it finishes up with Daniel 12, which talks about, again, the time of Christ. So Daniel is then, from 9, 10, 11, 12, he is telling the history, forward, future history of what's coming. So I believe 11 is all about the time period of surrounding the books of Maccabees and the time before the first century when Christ came. Katie Turner, you have a topic now of Jacob's system of breeding the sheep in his father-in-law's flock, using almond tree stems and others too, to diminish Laban's flock. Ooh, Katie, that's a good one. Let's put it on. I'm going to put it on the topic list. If you can give me a reference for that, otherwise I can search for it. But yeah, we'll go there and talk about that. Yeah, that's a good one. And Katie, I'll admit right off the bat that I haven't read this too much. I haven't dug too deep into this, so maybe we'll be digging together, and maybe you have more to add. So please throw it in there if you can. Lindsay Ball, you mentioned the topic Mount Sinai and Feast of Weeks, foreshadowing Pentecost. Okay, let's see. Mount Sinai and the Feast of Weeks. Foreshadowing Pentecost. All right. I got that on there. Laura Masood, you have another topic, and I'm just going to keep putting them on, guys, because what I'll do is I'll roll them forward if we can't get to them, so that's fine. As many as you want to give me, I'll put on here for this time, here at the beginning. The word of the Lord. And Laura Masood, by the way, that particular topic, I have a video that goes exhaustive into that. But I can go back over some of that today if you'd like me to. So when we get there, I'll mention the video that I've got that addresses that like holistically, and then we'll talk through some of the information here. All right, so here, guys, is our list. Here's our list. Pretty good right now. Well, it's hard to make this bigger. This application doesn't make things bigger very easily. But we got Laura Masood is doing good today. She's giving me some good stuff. Word studies in the Bible. Hearing from God, what does that mean? Is it valid? Does God speak in the modern time? Modern revelation? All those questions come in when we talk about that. Then Katie Turner, you gave us Jacob's breeding of the sheep to reduce Laban's flock in Genesis. What did you give me? Genesis 30:31, I think is what you said. 30:35. Yep, I'm going to put that on there. Okay. And then Lindsay Ball, you said Mount Sinai, the Feast of Weeks, foreshadowing Pentecost. That's one, Lindsay, that we will do if we get to it. I'm assuming we will. I will learn a lot by doing this because I can't say that I know of much of the Feast of Weeks and the Mount Sinai foreshadowing Pentecost. So what we'll do is we'll look into the Feast of Weeks and we'll think about Mount Sinai in context with Pentecost and see how it matches up. And then Laura Masood, you gave us the quote, word of the Lord coming to people in the Old Testament. And I'll definitely be able to share some stuff on that. So I think this is a good list now. If you guys could, let me know really quick in the chat if my sync and my audio is good. Last week, I think it was off by like a half second because of some of the tool sets I'm using to try to stream to multiple platforms. And so it's frustrating. I'm trying to get it all working right. But is my sync, my voice matching my mouth? I just need to know before we go on. If it's pretty close, we'll go forward. I just hate having it be that way after the fact, when people come to the video and it's like last week's was really off. I'm like, oh man. And while you're telling me that, I will get ready for the first topic. Okay, you say it's good, it's synced. Okay, good. Sandra Friendkick Cook, it's good to see you. Welcome this morning. All right, I think we're ready to get started. So let's do our first topic, which is Laura Masood's topic of word studies in the Bible. And Laura, to start this off, let me see what you said. Yeah, like the word hate. It's not what we think it is. So, yeah. You know what, guys? Before we start, man, I'm really bad at this. I get ahead of myself. What we really need to do is start with a few announcements and then a little prayer, because I wanted to do that for specifically Come Alive and then Armored Raven, your wife, this morning. Let's go ahead and do that. I don't want to forgo that. So let me put back up on the screen the announcements list, and then the prayer we'll do right at the end of that. So announcements this week, website updates. I do have a few updates on the website. On bible-scribe.com. Mostly on the app. So the website itself I didn't update, but the app this week I wanted to let you guys know. I've got a few new features over the past couple weeks, but this last week the main one I added was that when you go into a book of the Bible, so for instance I'll go into, it doesn't matter, Song of Solomon, or let's go Isaiah. So I'll go into chapter 1 of Isaiah. I added here, as you can see on the top right, I don't know if you can see, it's not too huge, but I added this link where when you're in a book of the Bible, you can bounce into BibleHub.com from there. And you can open up that view that I like to use, the view of King James with Strong's linked. So you can do your study that way if you need to pop over there and start looking at words or whatever you want to do. Now, that's on the chapter page. When you go into a verse, a specific verse, for instance, Isaiah 1:1, you'll notice over here, just under the verse, I added another Bible Hub link. Now, this link allows you to pop open that verse to the ancient language view. So you can go for, of course, the Old Testament, that's Hebrew. For the New Testament, that's Greek. But it takes you straight to the word, interlinear word studies for the ancient language. So I just felt like, I don't like having a dependency between the app and Bible Hub, but having this extra help, I think, is good just in general for Bible study. So I added that. That's the only thing this week that I actually added to the app. Like I had mentioned, I was pretty busy, so I didn't get around to too much. But if you are using it, if you are registered, if you're not registered, go ahead and get registered and look at that. It will, I think, be a good help. So that's the announcement on the app and all the updates. That's all I did this week. I wanted to mention that I'm going to open up probably this week financial support, and I'm going to use Give, Send, Go. You can see I have a campaign almost ready, and it's the Bible Scribe app campaign. So I wanted to make a few comments about this. When it goes live, I'm going to do an introductory video to say this is the financial support method. This is essentially the place you would go to pay for, and this is the reality. This is not a donation. You're not donating to me. It's not a charitable donation or a gift. This is a purchase of membership to the app. I just felt like Give, Send, Go is probably the best online space for that to happen, for you guys to be able to do that if you want to. So this campaign I'm going to launch this week and allow people to pay the payment for membership in the app. And that will support me and support my work on that app and making it what it needs to be. Not just for me, but for you and for any other people in the future that come to that thing. I want it to be what it can be. And that is, it's already something unique, but I want it to be, I have a vision for it. And I think that you guys understand that because I've talked about it so much. But anyway, that is going to be probably launched this week. I wanted to at least announce that. And there you go. Then, again, as always, I'm available for speaking engagements. Any testimonials that anyone wants to give or be a part of the channel, recording content with me for the channel, that's always an open door, an open request. And if any of you guys want to do any one-on-one calls or time or connect up, then please let me know by contacting me. You can get my email address on my website, bible-scribe.com, and we can connect up. Videos in progress, I already mentioned, is just the Beast video is my main concern right now. It's a big one, a lot of information, a lot of research. So with all those announcements said, let's do a little prayer time, and I won't make it long, but I want to bow my head real quick and ask the Father for help in these two situations and for a blessing over our meeting today. So let's do that. And if you would, wherever you are, you can bow and pray along. I appreciate you guys. Lord God, I do thank you for this day. I thank you for your watch care over us and all the people that are here you've brought back each week. Thank you so much for just your blessings and being able to do this and your protection. I know you've protected us when I can't even see it. You've protected the channel. You've protected what's going on. And I believe it's because you are behind it. And I want to put you first. And I know everyone on this channel does, Lord. But we have a special opportunity, Lord, to pray for Come Alive, who is in the middle of therapy for cancer. And Lord, just give him strength. Give him supernatural strength in addition to what comes from the way he's eating, his diet, all the things he's trying to do, he's fighting. Give him strength from his wife. Help her to support him at every turn. And we know that you can bring him through this. And I just praise you for him, for his friendship, for his devotion to just the people on this channel. And we just praise your name for Come Alive and what he does on his channel, Lord. Thank you for that. And I also want to pray, Lord, for Armored Raven and his wife, specifically for his wife, that you give her spiritual protection today, that you put angels around her to protect her from what may be incoming in the spiritual realm that we can't see, things that she has to fight that are not visible, and give her protection, strength, wisdom, and I just pray that you be with her this morning. We pray these things, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Thank you guys for doing that. And we'll go ahead and get started now. Okay, now we can get started, David. Now we can get started. First topic. All right. Word studies in the Bible. So the one you mentioned, Laura, was the word hate. And that when you looked it up, it doesn't seem like it means the same thing. And so I don't know if, Laura, you have a particular verse where that is, but I can dig around a little and maybe find the verse. So let's see about that first here. Let's see about that. And so let me put it up here. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this. Psycry launched a new video actually earlier this morning, and it's called Dark Horse and the Witness. So if you are interested in that, you can search for Psycry on Rumble and on BitChute, and you can see his latest. That's another reason why it was hard to get videos out this week. Sometimes I don't know what's going on in my brain. I don't know how God's leading me. I don't know why. I'm just doing something that feels like I have to do it, and I don't understand everything about that. So that video got released this morning. Anyway, there's that. Okay, that's not what I was trying to do here, though. So let's see. Let's do this. All right. Are you talking about then? Yeah, you guys are talking about, when you mention the word hate, Laura, you're talking about Esau, right? Like you said, it troubled you that God hated Esau before he was born, right? That's it. That's the one. So we look up the word hated. Let's see. Interesting. Do you know the verse on that? Because in my translation here, let's just do this. Let's do Esau instead. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Well, oh, it's in Romans that is actually said. Isn't that also in the Old Testament, though? Oh, guys, why am I feel like I'm out of it this morning. Just as it is written, Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated. Trying to find the cross-reference, guys, between Romans 9:13 And oh, Malachi. There we go. Is it Malachi? Yeah, Malachi 1. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to get there. Oh, Bible. Do it. Malachi 1. There it is. Okay. The burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by Malachi. Now this is interesting. So the context here is this is the first words of the prophecy of Malachi. So that's interesting context. It'll probably change how we understand these few verses here. But verses 1, 2, and 3 of Malachi 1. The burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by Malachi. I have loved you, says the Lord. Yet we say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was it not Esau, Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Whereas Edom says, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus says the Lord of hosts, they shall build, and I will throw down. They will call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. And your eyes shall see, and ye shall say, the Lord will be magnified from the border of Israel. A son honoreth his father, etc., etc. Let's see if there's anything else. I'm skimming for anything else contextually. Interesting. Behold, what a weariness it is, and I have snuffed at it, says the Lord of hosts. You brought which was torn, and the lame and the sick. Thus you brought an offering. Should I accept this of your hand? So this is the Lord telling them how bad their sacrifices had become. They weren't sacrificing the best of their flocks anymore. So just in an interesting context here. From the rising of the sun to the going down of the same, my name will be great among the Gentiles. I love these verses. In every place incense will be offered to my name, a pure offering. For my name will be great among the heathen. Oh, you Israel-only people, you get away. You just don't get it. Just don't get it. In these verses, these prophecies, I'm just going to go on a rant for a second. In these prophecies where it's literally contrasting Israel to the heathen nations and the Gentiles, it's a contrast. You can't have a contrast in language without two things being different. But the Israel-only guys will come in here and say, no, Israel means Israel, and the Gentiles means Israel. And the heathen means Israel. Israel only is such a joke. Oh, it's such a horrible misinterpretation. All right, back to Esau and Jacob. Sorry, Laura. We're getting there. Okay, so let's do the word studies then on these verses and see if we can come up with more. Okay, and like you said, it's the word study that's the problem here. So I'm going to go back in here and I'll use this tool that I added this week, which is great. Man, I'm going to be using this all the time now. So Malachi 1:2 in Hebrew parallel. Now it says, I have loved you, says Yahweh, and yet you say. So let's stop here and let's learn the word love first, because this is it's a dichotomy. At least we feel it's an opposites, right? It's a love and a hate. It's an opposite in our modern thinking. So let's make sure that follows suit with what the Hebrew says. Some of those hard, fast language rules of English don't always translate back into Hebrew, and it's problematic. So I have loved, love here, the word acheb, and means to love, according to Strong's. Beloved, dearly, love, friend, friends. This is the translations in the New American Standard used for this word. Love, lovers, friends. Most often translated love or loves. Okay? Or loved. So definitely is the intention. Now, I would say that we got to be careful because the word love in almost all of the Bible is it's like the Greek word charis. It's like charity. It's looking out for the well-being of a person. So that seems to be what is being talked about. I have loved you, says Yahweh, and yet you say, how have you loved us? Was not the brother Esau of Jacob, says Yahweh, and yet I have loved Jacob. So I'm trying to parse in my head how this is worded. In Hebrew, it's strange. So in Hebrew, you got to understand the way this really reads. Let's do this. Let's do interlinear with the Hebrew. It does say, I have loved. Et kem is to you. I have loved. The object of that love is you. Amar says Yahweh. And wa is a conjunctive. And yet you say, or you continue to say in the Hebrew, in which, and it's not way. See, when there's these, you see the brackets? Any square brackets means that was not in the original text. Anytime you see that in any of these ancient texts, and you'll see it in the Bible as well, square brackets means that word was not actually in the ancient language. So they added it so it supposedly makes more sense in English, but what we can do when we read into the Hebrew is we can just drop those words. So the Bama here is actually just in what, in like how, or in what have you loved us? And then it's not was not, meaning an interrogative question. It's not brother Esau of Jacob, says Yahweh. And I have loved Jacob. So I'm worried here now about the translation of this verse just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is go to, this is getting a little deep, guys. Young's literal translation, and I want to see Malachi with that translation. So verse 2 in Young's literal says, I have loved you, said Jehovah. And this is how I was translating it mostly. So, and you have said, in what have you loved us? Is not Esau Jacob's brother? An affirmation of Jehovah, says Yahweh, essentially. And I love Jacob, and Esau I have hated, and I make his mountains a desolation. So let's go to that word hated, Laura, and let's look at that, because I think that's going to be key to this whole discussion. I've loved Jacob, but Esau, and you notice here, like, just so you guys see what you're dealing with when a translator's trying to translate Hebrew, that same wa prefix on a word is just a conjunctive. It's not and it's not but. They rendered it but in the English, but it's just a conjunctive. It really should just be and every time. This is and the Esau. Et is the Esau I have hated. And hated here is this word. So sane, to hate, is what the Strong says. Rendered in the New American Standard, hate every almost every single time. Hated, enemy, enmity, unloved, turns against. Okay, so anyway, the vast majority is hate. And so that seems to be what is being talked about. So in this case, I think that, when we think of the word hate, I mean, this is actually really hard, and I've been asked about this before, Laura. It's a really hard passage to get your mind around, because why would God hate? Why would he hate Esau? And I just think that I don't have a really good answer, actually. Let me look at the chat, see what you guys are talking about. Yeah. Lindsay Ball, you just posted a good verse. Genesis 25:23. 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manners of people shall be separated from thy bowels. One people shall be stronger than the other. The elder shall serve the younger. Yeah. I mean, you see in this verse, when he says he hated Esau, he says then in the same verse, I laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the serpents or dragons of the wilderness. So you need to understand that God, as soon as Esau is born, he knows the end from the beginning. I mean, he knows exactly what's going to happen with Esau, his heritage, his generational, what's going to come after him and what's going to come out of him. He knows his heart. He knows everything about him. And so, from that perspective, I don't have a problem with God saying he hated Esau. Although, the reason most people have a problem with that statement is because of the New Testament where it says God is love, right? God is love. And so they're like, well, if you loved, how could you hate anybody? But the reality is the word hate is not necessarily an opposite of love. I think that might be the true reality. Hate not being an opposite. See, like I said in the beginning, we set it up in English as a dichotomy. He loved this guy, he hated this guy. But God has no choice but to despise evil. And so I think that to me is what's happening here. He cannot love Esau because of what Esau is going to do, and he knew it. He knew it as soon as he came out. Well, he probably knew it before that, right? So to me, it's more about who God is and less about whether God is able to hate someone or not like somebody. This is the conversation we have all the time about was God mean? Is God mean in the Old Testament, right? No, he's not mean, but he's holy and just, and he cannot tolerate wickedness like what Esau was. I mean, he came out of the womb cheating and lying. C. Jones, you said, then why do we teach love the person, not the sin? That's a good question. Love the person. Don't love the sin. Love the sinner, right? C. Jones, why didn't Yahweh love the person and hate the sin? Well, C. Jones, let me ask you this. Let's do it this way. Did Esau not have every opportunity to do the right thing in every situation? Did he not have that opportunity? And did he always choose the wrong thing? Seems like he did. Seems like he had the opportunity to be holy and righteous and everything God wants in a human, but that he did not choose those things. So I think Yahweh is justified in despising a wicked person. I think this is devolving in a little bit into a conversation about is there a point at which God should give you over to wickedness? Let me just ask that, and why don't you guys answer that? Should God always extend himself to you even if you are spitting in his face and shaking your fist at him? At what point is there a line that can be drawn? Is there a line that can be drawn? Or are you saying that God should always love people and give them whatever they want, even when they are fighting him, spitting in his face, satisfying the lust of their flesh? I don't believe that the Bible teaches that. If you're talking again about unconditional love, that's an interesting question, something maybe we should talk about. Mr. Hamilton, good morning, sir. And you said, how could you love Aleister Crowley? That's the question I'm asking. A person who gave his life to fighting God and being wicked and evil. Yeah, that to me is maybe the root of this, perhaps. At what point is God allowed to hate someone? To quote, set himself against someone. He did this against different nations in the Old Testament. Most of these nations were pagan, child sacrificing, human sacrificing, burning people alive, waging war against peoples, passing around venereal diseases. By the way, that's true. That's part of one of the nations in the Old Testament. At what point is God wrong for setting himself against wickedness? Yeah, C. Jones, I think what you're saying, you don't understand hate, the word hate. It's because I think it's probably that idea of it's the opposite of love. But God will destroy wickedness. Is God wrong for destroying wickedness? Wickedness. Some of the people who pushed abortion on our society for the last 50 years or whatever, they pushed abortion on us. They want specifically to cause abortion in the minority communities. These are wicked people. They think some people are animals to be done away with. That's wickedness. Is God just in setting himself at odds with those people? Can he hate those people for that? I'd say yes, he can. And I say he is just in doing so. I think that, the wording of the English language is tough, and we have ideas about it that we bring to these texts sometimes, and we, it forces our view of some things. It kind of forces it. So, anyway. Probably said too much there. I'm probably going to get banned now. Whatever. Yeah. Well, I don't know that it's the wrong word. I just think we have a lot of expectations around that word. Define hate. Let's define hate. See, this, just the normal, Normal definitions of hate is to feel a strong dislike or hostility toward, to feel dislike or distaste for, or to be disinclined out of politeness or need to apologize. See, that if that's hate, then that's not what you're talking about, guys. You know, when we're saying hate and thinking of it in the context of this passage, we're thinking of like, I want to kill you, or I want to destroy you, right? Opposite of love. Instead of wanting the best for someone, you want the worst. But that doesn't seem to be what the word hate is defined as. I mean, I can go to Merriam-Webster.com. Words mean things, and we have so destroyed words in our culture that now on Merriam-Webster.com it says an intense hostility or aversion, usually deriving from fear, anger, or sense of injury. Extreme dislike or disgust. So that helps. I mean, if we really are... I bet that most of us came to this conversation with a lot of baggage with that word, thinking it means I wanted to kill you, I want to destroy you, I loathe you, all this stuff. You know, it's baggage. The word doesn't necessarily mean all of that. And most likely, especially in King James, when they translated to that word, they knew the word a lot better. And they meant its actual meaning, which was disgust for, or I'm essentially averse to this person or hostile towards you. Not that I want to, dismember you and feed you to animals. I hope that maybe clears it up a little, but that's a hard one. That's a hard verse, guys. And this conversation, it's so funny how we come to this conversation so often in our culture. Why is God so mean? Why is he not just love everybody? Can you hug a rabid animal who's trying to tear you limb from limb? Can you try to love an animal that's literally trying to destroy you at that moment? Let's say it's a bear who's rabid. A bear who's just crazy wild with bloodlust. You're going to go hug a grizzly bear when he's trying to rip you apart? I think that's what we're talking about here. You don't. You cannot. Anyway. Okay. I think I want to pass that topic by now. I want to keep going. Let's go to the next topic. It's a great topic. I just think we got down to this spot again where it's like we're in this discussion about, is God just in punishing wickedness? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes. All right, next topic. And let's see, this is also Laura. But Laura, because we just did your topic, I'm going to push your other two topics down at the bottom. And we're going to talk about Katie's topic of Jacob breeding sheep to reduce Laban's flock. So let me get that on the screen. We will go into that now. All right. So Genesis 30:35. Thank you, Katie, for bringing this topic. I hope that I can address it. I'm actually a little, guys, just full disclosure, I'm a little intimidated this morning. These topics you're getting to nuanced topics now that are very, unless I've really just studied that part, it's really hard. So we're going to have to read some of this together and just talk through it. I hope that's fine with you guys. I love doing this stuff, but I will say I'm a little intimidated by some of these. All right, so let's pull up this stuff and let's clean up my tabs there. Okay. So Genesis 30. And if you guys didn't know this in the app, you can type a reference like that and just go straight to it. All right. So we're going to go back to the chapter view and get some context around this. So in Genesis 30:35. Let's see. just 35 is this. And he removed that day the he-goats that were ring-streaked and spotted, and all the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them to the hands of his sons. And he set 3 days' journey betwixt himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. All right. And then Jacob took him rods of green poplar and of the hazel and chestnut tree, and pilled white streaks in them, and made the white appear, which was in the rods. So this is interesting. Like, you know what this means is he took little sticks of poplar and hazel and chestnut, and he would take, for instance, a knife or a scraping tool and scrape bark off in lines down the rod or the stick. So each stick looked like it had lines in it, right? Because he scraped the bark off and revealed the meat of the tree underneath. Obviously, some that would expose the nutrition and the different chemicals and things in the bark and in the meat of that tree. So that's interesting. It says, then he set the rods which he had pilled before the flocks in the gutters and the watering troughs when the flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth the cattle, ring-streaked, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob did separate the lambs, and set the faces of the flocks toward the ring-streaked, and all the brown in the flock of Laban. And he put his own flocks by themselves, and put them not into Laban's cattle. So he separated them, set the faces of the flocks toward the ring-streaked and the brown in the flock of Laban. So he, and then put his own flocks by himself, and put them not into Laban's cattle. So he didn't want to mix the cattle. It looks like he gave Laban all the ring-streaked and the brown, if I'm not misunderstanding that, right? And it came to pass, whensoever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. Okay, now I'm starting to get something, guys. This is pretty amazing, okay? We're going to be talking now about something that probably not many of you guys have heard, I would imagine. I had only heard this once or twice before, and it's because of a certain book that I've read that talked about, there's a couple things. Oh, this is really good, guys. You're going to love this. Okay. Let's finish the chapter here. But when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in, so the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger were Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly, and had much cattle, and maidservants, manservants, camels, and asses. So, it appears that what Jacob did here was to intentionally breed into this cattle speckled, spotted, and brown, or not cattle, but it looks like goats, and is it sheep too, or just goats? Goats and lambs. I don't know if the word lambs here means true sheep, or if he's just talking about, anyway, it's flocks and herds, okay? But he bred into them the speckled and brown, and then apparently gave Laban all those, or all the weakest, and kept for himself the strongest of the herds. And of course his herds grew and flourished and were strong. So in this way, Jacob selectively bred into the flock's defects, and then forced Laban to take the ones with the defects. Now, at first what I said is correct. So now we're getting into the interesting stuff. Okay. At first what I was thinking when I said he pilled the rods, like he took these sticks and he scraped down lines in the rods. He scraped lines in them. And he pilled them in front of the flocks. Look at how it says it. In front of the flocks, in the gutters, in the watering troughs, when the flocks came to drink, that they would conceive when they came to drink. green poplar, hazel, and chestnut. I think it's possible, Katie, that, as you said, it could have been aphrodisiac. But there's something else. So stick with me here. I'm looking up if hazel is an aphrodisiac. I don't know. I'm not right off the bat finding that. So I'm going to put that aside because it looks like right off the bat, at least hazel. Now, chestnut tree bark and poplar bark could be an aphrodisiac. And I actually wouldn't even expect modern science to know or to reveal it if it was true. But that's a possibility. But here's the other thing. You know what he did. Jacob took these rods and he scraped lines on them so there were, lines all the way around the rod. And then he did it in front of the flocks. And he put them near the watering trough so when they drank, they would see them. That's the key. Listen to this. Now, this is where you're going to be like, what? They saw the rods. And then they conceived before them. They brought forth ring-streaked, speckled, and spotted offspring. Think about that. The rods visually were lined, so it was color, dark light, dark light, dark light. And then they conceived and they were speckled. They had the same kind of coloring configuration. There's a connection there that you probably haven't heard about before, okay? And this is where you're going to think, man, he is way off his rocker. He is nuts. So I have this book that I've read, and it's from the 14th century, 15th century, France, and it is the journal of a doctor who lived during that time in France and was a doctor, not only just a normal doctor, he was a doctor to some of the royal families in France. Let me see. Oh, goodness. It's going to be hard for me to find the book. I've got the book here at the house, but I don't think I'll go and get it right now. Oh, heaven's sake. It's not a comic book. What the heck? I think I'm going to have to go to Amazon to find it. Amazon. Is it gone? Is it just gone? I can't find the book anymore. Oh, guys, I don't think I can find it. I'm gonna have to find it later and put it in the show notes, like in the description. Yeah, this is not. Doggone it. This is it. This is it. Oh. This is not it. Alright. Well, I'll forget it. So, this book I'm talking about is the journal of this French doctor from the 15th century. And in it, he talks about all these birth anomalies with humans. And he talks about these women who had broods of like 15 babies born at the same time, or 20 babies. I'm not kidding you. He recounts it as history. It's his journal. There were women that he met or had testimony from other doctors that had huge broods, gave birth to many children at once. Then there are others who gave birth to defect children with birth defects, huge birth defects, anomalies. Some were like normal birth defects you think of, where an arm's growing in the wrong place, or it's like conjoined twins that didn't separate, and so there's that kind of a thing going on. Others, it's this person literally, he's saying, I birthed from this woman, and he gives the location where the woman lived, a creature that was half human, half fish. I mean, he talks about it. It literally happened. Or had the legs of a horse. Stuff like this. And so, let me hide the screen because I don't want to distract. This man talks about these different things. And he also talks about the reasoning that they believed at the time for why these things could occur. These weird anomalies that were animalistic or, problematic. And here's what he said. Listen to this. This is the cool stuff. He literally said that during conception, that what a woman, it was known that when a woman was thinking of a thing during conception, that would be part of the genetics of the thing that was conceived. And so that's how a woman a depraved woman who perhaps had intercourse with an animal would produce anything at all, or that in their mind, if they're thinking about an animal during conception, that it actually bears out in the conceiving, in the conceived being, and the formation of the genetics. And not only that, not only is there the testimonies from this French doctor in the 15th century that say that that's what they knew. He's saying not that they think that might be the case. He's saying because we all know that whatever a woman is considering at the time of conception is born out in the birth. He's saying they knew that. And then the other thing is there are texts, and I'm going to be unable probably to pull it this fast, but there are texts that talk about, ancient texts about the Genesis 6 incursion with the angels, that say that the reason, it talks about it in this way. It says, and as the women were marrying to the angels, that they conceived based on their perception of the angels. And so it's almost saying that because the women were, in Genesis 6, that were conceiving with angels, were thinking about these angels and their form and their beauty, but because, and that was what in fact caused them to bear giants, because they were at the time of conception considering these angels and their form and their beauty and their majesty. And so this is something that I've almost never heard anyone talk about. I'm the only one that talks about this. But it's literally a thing. I mean, have you ever stopped to think about, as a woman, why your son looks like his father? What were you thinking about when you conceived that son? Or have you ever thought about, I mean, it just the implications are mind-boggling, and it's something that modern science totally doesn't talk about at all, would never talk about. To think that there's any connection between psychology and physiology like that, they wouldn't admit that, or spirituality, So I'm just saying, it's like, that's something that I read about. It's both in the ancient texts and it's in this 15th century doctor's writings about his experiences with genetics. And well, they didn't even call it genetics back then, but just, conception and birthing. And there's something very spiritual and special and magical about the conception process in a woman. Something amazing. And I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but this is stuff that has to be considered. And in the context of this passage, it's not New Agey, Lindsay. It's not New Agey. It's spiritual. Do we understand everything spiritual? No. And I'm not telling you. I'm telling you what I've read, both from this guy in the 15th century and ancient texts. Like, why do you always come back on these things like that's Gnostic or that's New Agey? And it's not. It's not New Age. New Age never taught that. They've never taught anything like that or even said anything like that. No one in New Age has ever said anything like this. But to go back to our passage, Katie Turner, not that. This seems to be what Jacob was doing. He'd put these striped sticks in front of his flocks. And because they were looking at them all the time, he knew that in their minds during conception, they would still be thinking or seeing those things. And he created flocks of spotted and speckled and brown and white sheep and goats and calves. That's what I think is being talked about here, based on my reading, my experience, and what I'm talking about that I've read in these other writings. It may have also been an aphrodisiac. It sounded like the poplar and the hazel, and because if he was just using the visual of the striped twigs, then why would he have used those kinds? Like 3 different kinds: poplar, hazel, and what was the other one? Chestnut. Yeah, poplar, hazel, chestnut. So there's possibly an aphrodisiac in those, like he put it in their watering troughs or something, perhaps. But at the same time, the visuals, he set it before them. It says it a couple times in here. He set those rods before his flocks so they would see them. You have to wonder. See, I told you guys, I went off the deep end. Why did you do that? So the book I'm trying to find is like, it's called Mysteries, Marvels, and Monsters or something like that. It's a gray cover on the book and it has a old wood engraving picture of a dragon or something on the front. But it's all from this doctor, and it talks about all these creatures he encountered and things, and then his experience when he was, helping women give birth in France in the 15th century. And it got me on the track of thinking about this. And then when I saw that in these ancient texts, and I think it might have been the Dead Sea Scrolls, or it could be the Kebra Nagast, I don't know, but I think it actually might have been the Kebra Nagast that has this. It says when the women were considering the angels, they bore the giants. And in the Kebra Nagast, it says when they bore those giants, they ripped open the women because they were so big. So as they were growing, they just ripped right through the woman, and the women died from those births as they were giving birth to the giants. So it was obviously a bad move for them. But anyway, I digress. greatly. So, yeah, Rick, I'll put that book in my notes. I think I've mentioned that to one or two of you guys before, maybe in discussion. But Terry Barnes, good to have you this morning. Good morning. How many women, you say, paint their nails pink or blue to conceive the desired gender? That's a good point. We do all these things that people consider like superstition, right? And you guys, like Lindsay, you're saying it's new age. People do this stuff all the time. And there's some, not everything that's spiritual is new age or wrong necessarily. The book of Tobit is interesting because an angel tells Tobit to take some fish and do this thing with it and burn it, and that would keep a demon away. In the book of Tobit, I recommend you read it. The book of Tobit used to be included in the King James Version of the Bible. And so they probably took it out because they thought, oh, that sounds like witchcraft or something silly and gay like that. But the book of Tobit talks about that. An angel of the Lord tells Tobit how to ward off a demon by burning certain materials together and making smoke. So anyway, Armored Raven, you're going to manifest a cheesecake? I don't think you guys should experiment with what I've told you today. I think it's dangerous. Honestly, like I would be afraid literally to experiment with this. Whatever that means. Oh my gosh. I mean, we can't even conceive of all the things that God has made as a part of who we are and in humanity. And just in general, the way he created everything, animals too. So many strange things, so many things we don't understand and we'll never understand. There's so many things that science can never tell us about the way the humans or any other creature is conceived, essentially created something from nothing. I mean, who's responsible for putting the spirit in the body? Who's responsible for putting the soul in an animal? There is someone responsible, and that stuff is talked about in ancient texts too. It's not really part of this topic, but Katie, that was a weird topic. We got to get off of this topic. What is going on? Oh, we got way off the rails today. Oh my gosh. Told you guys it's going to be weird today. All right, Lindsay Ball, let's do yours now, okay? Mount Sinai, the Feast of Weeks. Foreshadowing Pentecost, perhaps. So let's do this. And Lindsay, I hope you know, and I call you out a little bit every now and then. I love you. I love having you. Lindsay, I think you're a wonderful person, and I just want you to know that even though we bat things around a lot, I know that, everyone's past colors their colors, including mine, colors your thinking, the way you respond to things, and, initial reactions to things. So I try to challenge you maybe, but it's totally in love. I just really enjoy having you, so I would never want you to take that the wrong way and, get mad. Don't be mad. Anyway, all right, Mount Sinai, let's do your topic then, Lindsay. The Feast of Weeks. So, this is another one I'm a little intimidated because I hadn't thought about this before, Lindsay. I hadn't thought about this. So let's do this. I gotta get my windows organized here. Yes, the dark horse. Scary. Okay. Feast of Weeks. So I'm just going to give myself more context on the Feast of Weeks so that I can get going here. What is the Feast of Weeks? And maybe this helps you guys too. Described in Leviticus 23, Feast of Weeks is the second of 3 solemn feasts. Let's see if I can get this bigger. that all Jewish males were required to travel to Jerusalem to attend. This important feast gets its name from the fact that it starts 7 full weeks, or 50 days, a jubilee, after the Feast of First Fruits. Since it takes place exactly 50 days after the previous feast, this feast is known also as Pentecost in Acts 2, which means 50. Very good. I already have learned something. All right, let's go to Leviticus 23 and read the first mention of the Feast of Weeks in the Bible. So go to here, go to here. What was it? Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23. Okay. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, concerning the feast of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts. 6 days work, but 7th is the Sabbath. 14th day of the first month is the Lord's Passover. 15th is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. The first day you have holy convocation, etc., etc. The sheaf, wave the sheaf before the Lord. Okay, I think most of this. Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall you number 50 days, a jubilee, and you will offer new meat offering to the Lord. You shall count from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day you brought the sheaf of the wave offering 7 Sabbaths. So that's 7 weeks. 7 times 7 is 49, plus 1 is the 50, and that's the Jubilee calculation. Then after that, you will offer new meat to the Lord, an offering. You will bring out the habitations 2 wave loaves of 2/10 deals. They will be for fine flour, or of fine flour. They shall be baked with leaven. With leaven. It's interesting because Rosh Hashanah and the Passover and everything is without leaven. The Passover was without leaven because leaven was sin. It was the representation of sin. Okay, so they shall be baked with leaven, but they are the first fruits unto the Lord. 2 wave loaves of 2/10 deals. They shall be of fine flour, baked with leaven. They are the first fruits unto the Lord. You will offer with the bread 7 lambs without blemish of the first year, 1 bullock, 2 rams. They shall be for a burnt offering unto the Lord with their meat offering, their drink offerings, and offering made by fire of sweet savor. They shall sacrifice 1 kid goat. For sin offering, 2 lambs for the first year for a sacrifice of peace offerings. The priest shall wave them with the bread of the first fruits for wave offering before the Lord with the 2 lambs. They shall be holy to the Lord for the priest. This is a very complicated feast. Very complicated. And you will proclaim on the selfsame day that it may be a holy convocation to you. You shall do no work therein. It shall be a statute for you in all your dwellings throughout your generations. And when you reap the harvest, leave the corners for gleaning. Okay. That's complicated. I'm going to read some more over here to see if I can get more context on exactly, without having to go through that passage 10 times to understand everything that's being said. The first fruit offerings required all able-bodied Jew males to go to Jerusalem to attend the feast and offer sacrifices. The Feast of First Fruits celebrated the time of Passover included the first fruits of the barley harvest. The Feast of Weeks was in celebration of the first fruits of the wheat harvest. And of the Feast of Tabernacles involved offerings, the first fruits, the olive and grape harvest. Tabernacles. I think that what I just read, I went through both the feasts, the Feast of Weeks and the Feast of Tabernacles. Is that true? Yeah, probably. Yeah, the 15th day of the 7th. Oh, that was further down. Okay. Yep. So that was the Feast of Weeks. Present an offering of new grain to the Lord, new meat, to be 2 wave loaves, 2/10 of an ephah, made of fine flour baked with leaven. I don't know, guys. Without getting super detailed here, this is named Shavut, which is the Hebrew word for weeks. It's so funny, guys. This is the word Sabbath, but in a plural sense. So it's V and B are often translated from the same thing in same letter in Hebrew. So this is literally Shabbat, Shavut. It's just a conjugation of Sabbath. Interesting. I love the language. It's interesting. This is one of 3 separate names used to refer to this feast. The Day of First Fruits. Besides being called the Feast of Weeks, it is also called the Day of First Fruits and the Feast of Harvest. To be honest, like, I immediately was thinking, as we read through this, I was thinking of the inclusion of the Gentile harvest in the kingdom. Because there's Passover, which we saw as one of our previous live streams was super interleaved and woven into the fabric of who Christ is and what he did in the first century and Israel. And so it just makes me wonder if this has more to do with the Gentile harvest. It has to do with the harvest. But also the word first fruits being used to me is interesting because Christ was the first fruits of the dead, right? So references to first fruits in the feasts and the rituals of the Hebrew law, to me, oftentimes refer to Christ as the first fruits from the dead, the first of the redeemed. But there were also more first fruits considered in those prophecies. I think some of the first century Christians, mainly Jews, were also considered the first fruits of the kingdom. So to me, I probably need to do a lot more research on this particular feast to give you good information, Lindsay. I want to do that. I don't want to just say stuff. And I'm going to check up on your comments then, guys. And you say, Lindsay, the first Christians were the first fruits in the harvest. And Hamilton, you believe 3,000 died on the first Pentecost? Okay. Okay. I mean, the word Pentecost obviously is the same word. I mean, that's what they called it. Pentecost is probably the Greek derivation of the word that was used for this, 50-day waiting period, this jubilee between the other, Passover, essentially, and the Feast of Weeks. So they may have just called it, in Greek, they called it Pentecost. So I see Mick Grossum, you joined us. It's good to have you this morning. To me, that is the best I'm probably going to do for now. I kind of want to take this and I'm going to make this on my... And I'm going to put that on a list down here. The Feast of Weeks. That's Leviticus. What was it? Leviticus 23. Really was, yeah. 16 to 21. So I'm going to save that and do it again next week. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do some real study on it so that next week I can give you specifics. I really want to do that. So I would say this, though, Lindsay, maybe if, I just want to make sure that this isn't what we're doing here, but if you are referring to the specific thing that happened in the New Testament, in Acts chapter 2 of Pentecost, quote, Pentecost, as an event, where all the people had come for Pentecost to Jerusalem, and then God used that moment in history to teach all the nations about the gospel. Teach all nations. Spread the gospel to every nation. And he gave the disciples an uncanny ability to speak languages they didn't know. And Peter preached an incredible sermon that connects the Old Testament to what Christ did and says he's on the throne reigning. It's now, the kingdom is established. And so all those things happened. That event is not... is definitely related to this, but to know if it's foreshadowed in the feast itself, I would have to do more research, that specific event. But Pentecost in and of itself is just the event every year, right? But if you're talking about that specific event in Acts 2, then that's what I'll have next time if it's there. I'll try to find that connection and describe it very specifically. All right, so we are about at time, and I think I've got these other topics that we did not get to. Laura, Masood, two of yours, hearing from God. I want to talk about this one really quick, just because I think it's valuable, and I want to go ahead and do it. I think I won't take long, but... I think it's a valuable little thing to just pop in here at the end. So talking about hearing from God, and I'm not going to fully remember the way you worded it when you mentioned it at the beginning, but I think it was something about, do we hear from God nowadays, or is that true? Is it not? What does he do? Is it good? And there's all these questions that come up when we talk about that, of what we call progressive revelation of God. And there are many groups of Christians, denominations, that believe that God is still talking to the church in general through people that they call prophets, which, by the way, the Bible says there are no more prophets, that they should not be listened to. In fact, it speaks of murdering prophets that come out after Christ came. And so people do say that there are prophets in the modern time, and they are receiving messages from God for the church to act upon as if they were the words of God. Obviously saying that they have the authority of God the Father in heaven. And I 100% disagree with that. And it mostly has to do with those passages in the Old Testament that say that, there would be no prophets after the time of Christ. No more prophets would be sent from God. 0. And that they would hide. They would hide because they would be killed for saying they were a prophet after the time of Christ. So I do not believe God sends prophets now. None. Nobody on TV, nobody at any church, nobody is a prophet. Now, do I think God speaks to people? Do I think we hear from God? I actually do think that is true. A long time ago, and it may be someone on this live stream, so if it is, I'm not saying anything negative about this at all, but I had someone a long time ago on the channel reach out to me and say that they saw visions in the sky from God, and that they felt he was speaking to them through these visions. They sent me photographs of the sky and clouds and things like that they said were God speaking to them. Now, at first, hearing that, you might think, oh, that's strange. That's not anything I would, agree to or think that was true. But what I've found over the years and talking to lots of different people is that lots of different people feel like God speaks to them in lots of different ways. Lots of different ways. From hearing a voice to getting a feeling of someone pushing you some direction to seeing visions or having dreams specifically, or literally just, like I said, hearing a voice that tells you things. And I would say that without going into too much detail, I personally feel like God speaks to me specifically, directly, with intention, with guidance. But that's not something I will ever deliver to the church. I will never deliver that to other people because I believe that was for me. And I believe he has angels. I definitely believe 100% the idea of a guardian angel is a legitimate idea that goes back to ancient times. It's not just some bedtime story that people made up in the modern time. Guardian angels are real. And there are multiple texts that talk about guardian angels. Perhaps I should do a video on that. So I always tell people this. I say, do you think that the voice in your head that's speaking to you is you? Do you have the audacity to think that the voice in your head is actually you speaking? It may not be. And I think what I always tell people when they ask me about is what I'm hearing, is that God talking to me? Like, what I tell them is that, well, I can't tell you that. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that you need to weigh everything that you hear spiritually, or comes to you in a vision or a dream or this or that. Everything should be weighed against Scripture. And it should obviously be consistent with what we know is God's character. If we think it's God, it must be consistent with that. And of course, the best source we have for that is the Bible. And so I would say that, yes, I do believe God speaks to people, but I do not believe it's for the purpose of prophecy that should be shared any longer because of the things that are said in the Old Testament. I think that if that's happening to you, it is for you and to you alone, and that you must be discerning, because there are evil spirits out there. There are evil spirits and demons that will try to dissuade you, try to hurt you, try to lead you down bad paths. But when you hear the soft voice of God telling you to do something good, do you think that can come from anywhere other than God himself? A small voice telling you to help that person at the side of the road, or at work, the person that needs just a hand up, that needs encouragement during the day. When God speaks to me, sometimes I feel like he wants me to do certain videos for certain reasons. And I do not believe that is anything detrimental. I sometimes follow it. If I think it's him, I do follow it. I did exactly that thing this week. And so again, without getting too specific about my own experience, I do have a lot of experience with that, with feeling like I'm getting direction. And I try to just respond and weigh it against what I know of God's character. It always, for me now, almost always rings perfectly true with God's character, and I follow that. But with the foundation of what I know of him, so anyway. So Armored Raven, I don't know what the comment on schizophrenia means, but I don't want to I don't know if I want to know what y'all talking about. Tomcat, you say many people claim God speaks to them, yet what's said contradicts others who claim the same. It's sad. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of an example of that, but yeah. Well, here's the thing. What I'm talking about, like getting direction or good intention or meaning and purpose from what I hear, is different than when I wouldn't go out and say, well, like in this video on the Beast of Revelation. Well, that's a bad example. But I wouldn't go out on a doctrinal limb. Let's say I believed in Calvinism. Let's pretend. I wouldn't go out on a limb and tell people, God told me Calvinism is true. That's about the dumbest thing you could do. Or pick a doctrine, right? God told me the Trinity was true. I saw a vision of the Trinity. In my dream, I saw a triangle. It was a pyramid, and there was an eye at the top. I'm making fun, but I'm having fun. I'm just saying those aren't the things that I would ever claim. God shown me this, and so it's true whether you tell me it's not, or whether I read something that's contradictory to that or not. You know, another thing you need to think about too is I've had a lot of people tell me, and I'm not trying to be mean here or say anything mean, but think about this. I believe, people will say this, I believe flat earth is true because God told me so. Okay? So you just have to think about that statement. If you have someone that said something like that, or thought that, or said that, you have to realize that if that's what you feel God told you, then he may have told someone else something else. And you have to realize that that's not necessarily something that will help by sharing it. You know, I mean, I get that, you know, we feel a leading and we feel a prompting, but God gave you that. Sometimes he gave it to you for you. And I'm not saying anything about the validity of that statement. Okay, I'm not trying to say anything because I am of the same persuasion, okay, as far as the cosmology of the earth. And I have felt a confirmation at times about that feeling, about that thought. But I also strive to prove that out, right? I don't just say, well, he kind of prompted me that might be true, so I'm just going to put it down and never look at it again. You know, that would be careless, I think. I think that would be careless. So, anyway, I'll just leave that at that. I think that's a good way to say all that stuff. But when God speaks to you, it's for you. And you just have to be very careful about what you think he wants to project through you to other people. I think it has to be in accordance with his character. It has to be in accordance with the scriptures. It's not something to take lightly. I guess that's a good way to say it. But so I appreciate all you guys' comments. I think you're making some good comments here. And thank you, Armored Raven. You say I'm not schizophrenic. I'm glad. I mean, I might be. I mean, you know, I might be. I might be schizophrenic when I make videos like this. The Dark Horse and the Witness. Yeah, you guys can go see that if you want. And I think we'll be about done for Bible Scribe today. If you guys have any questions in the chat, I'll stick around for 5 minutes to answer anything. But if you're, again, interested in, you know, whenever my altar puts on his straitjacket and goes into a dark place, this is the type of video that comes out of that situation. Oh my gosh. That was one of those things, by the way. It's like I got a prompting that had to happen. This had to happen. I don't know what to say about that other than I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop when I had this idea and the vision of what this video would be. I could not stop working on it. And that's part of why the Beast video is not done. I didn't come circle back on that thing and do the recording of it. It's a huge one by, all counts. It's massive amount of research. And every verse on the Beast, man, every verse has got like 100 cross references is what it feels like to other things. So you're trying to go through it verse by verse, but you're getting all in these different trails because they all connect. And it's so connected and interwoven. It's just amazing to me how all that works. But yeah, anyway, that happened with me on this week. I just couldn't stop. I had to finish it. I almost spent all day yesterday doing so. So, anyway. Yeah. Scary. Scary bad horse. Laura, you said when it's from God, you can't shake it off or run like Jonah. I know. It's like you can't. I mean, yeah. Tomcat, you say a ton of futurists claiming God told them this and that about rapture and coming a certain date and it never happens. Lots of laughs. Yeah, absolutely. I almost do stuff like this a lot, and then I back off because I don't want to be mean to other Christians. But there's a guy who I saw doing those videos. Every other day he's putting out a TikTok or a video about the end time and that it's going to happen. And he did it last year, and it was like September. It's definitely coming. And yet he still gets 10,000 views a week on his videos, and he was wrong again about the quote end of the world or the coming of Christ. It drives me absolutely nuts that people will listen to that and then it doesn't happen the way they said, and then they continue to listen. Because why? They just love the guy so much. Love the liar. Love the liar, not the lie. I don't know. Love the sinner, not the sin. I don't know. There you go. I brought it full circle, C. Jones. Is it the fear that they get so attached to of it's coming? The fear? I don't ever want to do that. That's a weak mind that's drawn to the fear of the unknown. Habitual, chronic fear mongering. How can you find value in that? How can you love that? I don't understand it. Robert Breaker, that's a good example, Lindsay. That's not the one I was thinking of, but yeah, I have done a video debunking Robert Breaker just because every week he's drawn the whiteboard of that Jesus is coming. And now he's gotten called out so many times. He goes, I don't know. I'm not saying he's coming, but I'm saying he's coming. Is it okay to speculate? He says that all the time. It's okay to speculate. It's like, but you essentially say he's coming every week. It's terrible. Tomcat, you say you are always afraid as a futurist. Yeah. Everybody is. That's the part that keeps you coming back is the fear and the fear and the salvation. The fear of the wickedness, the Antichrist, the beast system, the fear of the one world government, the fear of this, the fear of the chip in your arm, and then the hope, the dreaded hope of Christ coming and saving you from that. It's so, talk about schizophrenic. It's so psychotic. And I was that. It's so psychotic and mad. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I don't know. It's so crazy. Yeah. Guys, this has been a great morning, and we will go ahead and cut it for time's sake. I've had such a good time talking about these topics. I feel like I did not do service to the first topic. I think I was just stammering and stuttering because these are tough topics you guys are bringing. So I will keep Laura, a couple of yours for next time, or one of them. I think there was just one we didn't get to. The word of the Lord in the Old Testament, Laura. And by the way, Laura, since you asked about that, the video of mine that is totally goes over that all in the Old Testament. The word of the Lord is the Logo Tautheu, the Word of God is the name of the video. Or possibly it's the other way. The Word of God, the Logos Tautheu. So look that one up. I'm sure you can search for it. And you guys have a blessed day and a great week. Come alive. Stay strong, brother. And Armored Raven, tell your wife we are praying for her. The closer we can get in our prayer lives, the better. So thank you guys for participating in that and loving on each other. So good to have you guys with us today. God bless.